Well, let's bring you this now. Thousands of households in Soweto were plunged into darkness this after Eskom had implemented load reduction. The utility cut off supply to Dobsonville, Naledi, Zola, as well as Emdeni on Sunday to avoid network overloading. But for reaction to this, we're now joined by the Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee's Trevor Ngwane, who joins me this morning to take this conversation forward. Trevor, thank you for your time. Good morning to you. This load reduction announcement by Eskom, I mean, how are you taking it as the Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee?
Thank you for having me. Well, you know, we are complaining here in Soweto, but it's not only Soweto. The people in KZN, in the rural areas, for example, where I come from, Mutu, in Nongoma, in Madadeni, in Newcastle, in other parts of the country, where black working class people live, in the rural area, in the rural villages, in the shack settlements, in the townships. These are the people who are suffering from this load reduction. That is why at University of Johannesburg, when we conducted research, we called it energy racism. It's targeting black, working class, poor people.
What's the impact on this, on those affected? I mean, these households. Eskom, on one hand, arguing the non-payment of electricity, but you are of the view that it's beyond just non-payment. There seems to be intentionality behind these load reductions.
Yeah, of course. So the point is, we all know what happens when people don't have electricity. I mean, we conducted research. It shows that even people's mental health is affected. People say, I live in the dark, I'm always depressed, medicines in the fridge gets ruined. People have to spend double, triple on food. It means food security is threatened, education of the children, the students, etc. But the most important thing is the question we are posing. There's something deeper. Yes, President Ramaphosa came with his 10-point plan, so-called energy solutions. But what he missed is that there's a structural problem. Eskom simply cannot provide enough electricity to South Africa. Now, what it has been doing, it has been taking criminal shortcuts, simply cutting off the poor, the vulnerable, the powerless. This load reduction is aimed only at black working class areas. You'll never find it in Sentin, in Constantia, or in Umhlanga Rocks, these rich bourgeois areas. So basically, Eskom has been caught out because after this matter was exposed of load reduction, it quietened down. But now it has to come clear because basically they are balancing the shortages of the system, their own shortcomings, with attacking poor, black working class people.
Trevor, what do you think it would take to resolve this electricity crisis once and for all? I understand there's actually a meeting set for the 10th of September, a meeting between Sowetans as well as the Johannesburg mayor, where, of course, service delivery issues will be addressed, amongst them being this billing of electricity in Soweto, load shedding, load reduction, blackouts, however way you want to term it, but it is affecting Sowetans. What do you think, in your opinion, it would take to resolve this once and for all?
Well, I think this is a human rights issue. It's a question of social justice. Remember that poor, especially the poorest of the poor, they don't have any alternatives when there is no electricity. So they suffer the most. So if there's anyone who should be cut off or must sacrifice, it is the rich. For example, the iron smelters, those big companies which use 20% of the electricity, maybe they can switch off their engines for a while. I mean, they only employ not more than 300 people, but they make tons of money. It's women who suffer. Women spend a lot of time trying to find alternatives, spend a lot of time in the kitchen. There's smoke coming out. It's a hazard to their health. Women are found walking the field, picking up firewood, exposing themselves to gender-based violence. So I think really if the burden, the sacrifice must be done in this crisis, it must be spread to the richer parts of society, not the poorest of the poor, not the most vulnerable, not the powerless.
Whose responsibility is it, in my last question to you, Trevor, to resolve this matter?
This matter must be resolved by President Cyril Ramaphosa, because he came up with this solution, but clearly it's not working. I think in the end, you know, the trade unions like SAFTU, COSATU, I saw that a march on Wednesday about cost of living and other things. They really have to mobilize now and make sure that these unjust actions against poor working class people must stop. I think the only thing which will stop them is mass action, putting pressure on the government and Eskom to do the right thing.
We'll leave it there, and I appreciate you speaking to me this morning. Trevor Ngwane from the Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee, speaking to me about the announcement of a load reduction that, of course, had impacted Soweto, parts of Zola, Naledi, Emdeni, Dobsonville, just to name a few, saying it's the responsibility of the president to make sure that the electricity crisis in Soweto particularly is resolved once for all.